Hello and welcome to Japan Lyric Room. In this program, we explore the lyrics of Japanese songs, delivering clear explanations of their meanings and unique cultural backgrounds. Please note that while the voices and illustrations in this video are AI-generated, the project itself is run by two Japanese creators living in Japan. The script is carefully researched and written by us to provide original explanations.
Yeah, it's truly a pleasure to have you sitting down with us today for this lyric explanation.
So I want you to imagine writing a catchy, upbeat dance song, right? Like specifically as a fun surprise for your husband. But then only for a computer algorithm like 35 years later to completely turn it into a global anthem of this profound, devastating loneliness.
It's just wild.
It really is. Today, we are exploring an absolute masterpiece of Japanese city pop, which is Mariya Takeuchi's 1984 legendary track, Plastic Love.
Such a classic.
Right, and we've gathered a really fascinating stack of sources for this one. We're pulling from producer Tatsuro Yamashita's own production notes, some of Takeuchi's recent 2024 television interviews, and of course some really intense lyrical analyses.
Which is so necessary for a track like this.
Exactly. Our mission today is to figure out exactly how this specific track became basically the global Bible of city pop, and why its message resonates so powerfully with you and, millions of others today.
It's a remarkable story, honestly, because this is not just the song anymore. It's like this cultural phenomenon that managed to bridge completely different eras and completely different technology.
Yeah, let's actually lay out the timeline for anyone listening who might not know the wild history of this track.
Oh, yeah, please do.
So Plastic Love was originally released on Takeuchi's 1984 album, which is called Variety, and then it dropped as a standalone single in 1985. But it didn't become this massive, explosive global hit upon its release. That didn't happen until the late 2010s, so over 3 decades later.
Which is kind of unbelievable.
It is, and it was largely thanks to the YouTube recommendation algorithm just inexplicably serving it up to millions of people around the world.
Which is such a uniquely modern twist of fate, I think.
Yeah.
You have this song from 1984 getting a second, much larger life, simply because a black box computer algorithm decided to, push an iconic black and white thumbnail of Takeuchi into the feeds of a whole new generation.
Yeah, that thumbnail is iconic.
It really is. And the ripple effect is still going. You see its massive influence everywhere today.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's being covered by some of the top young artists in the world right now. People like Arturashi Gakko and Fuji Keze, even before his major debut.
But, I kind of want to push back on the whole algorithm thing for a second.
Oh, how so?
Well, an algorithm can put a song in front of you, sure, but it can't force you to actually like it, right? Or cover it or share it.
That's a very fair point.
So what is the musical mechanism that makes this track so incredibly timeless? Looking through the production notes, the story of its creation is actually really charming.
Yeah, it's super sweet. Mariya Takeuchi actually wrote it specifically to surprise her husband, Tatsuro Yamashita, who was arranging and producing the album.
Right.
Takeuchi wanted to step outside her usual style. She decided to write this 16-beat, highly danceable track, specifically aiming to create something that Yamashita himself might actually sing.
Wow, that's such a fun challenge.
Yeah, and she was incredibly proud of the result. In that 2024 television interview we looked at, she literally called it her best track. She knew she captured lightning in a bottle.
So I want to pause on a technical term you just used there, a 16-beat track.
Sure.
For anyone listening who isn't a musician, what does that actually mean in terms of how the song feels in your body?
That's a great question. So a 16-beat rhythm means the underlying pulse of the song is divided into 16 rapid notes per measure, rather than the more common 4 or 8.
Okay, so it's a lot faster internally.
Exactly. What that does to the listener is it creates a much faster, funkier, syncopated subdivision of rhythm. It literally compels your body to bounce.
Right, like you can't help it.
Yeah, it forces your shoulders to move. And this was a massive departure from the standard Japanese pop music of the era, which was known as kaiokyoku.
And kaiokyoku, just to clarify for our listeners, was a more traditional, slightly slower, and often very melodramatic style of Japanese pop music. Right?
Exactly. Kaiokyoku relied heavily on dramatic, soaring melodies. But Takeuchi and Yamashita were going through this period of trial and error, really trying to emulate Western funk and disco styles.
They wanted that bounce.
Yes, they wanted the bounce. And that brings us to what Yamashita himself believes is the secret ingredient to the song's longevity, which is the human groove.
Okay, explain this human groove thing, because, in the mid-1980s, synthesizer programming and drum machines were basically taking over the world.
Oh, completely.
But they made a very different choice here, right?
They did. Instead of relying heavily on rigid machine programming to get that 16-beat bounce, Yamashita prioritized manual playing.
Wow, so no drum machines for the main groove.
Nope, he used real studio musicians playing real bass lines, real drums, and he even played the funk guitar himself.
That's amazing.
It is. Because when human beings play music, even the absolute best studio musicians in the world, there are microscopic imperfections in the timing.
Like slightly off the grid.
Exactly. A note hits a millisecond late, or a bass pluck is slightly harder than the one before it. Those tiny imperfections create a warmth and a breathability that a drum machine simply cannot replicate.
So it literally breathes. That makes perfect sense. The groove is undeniably human, which gives it this timeless, sophisticated polish.
Right.
But this brings us to the brilliant paradox of plastic love, which is what we're really going to spend the rest of our time exploring today.
Yet the lyrical contrast.
Exactly. Musically, it is this upbeat, glamorous, undeniably catchy dance tune. But the melody was written first, and the lyrics were added later. And the story they tell is absolutely devastating.
The contrast is staggering, really.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics depict this woman in the city who has lost real love.
Mm-hmm.
She's living this decadent, nocturnal life, acting incredibly tough and untouchable on the outside.
Yeah.
But internally, she is drowning in a bottomless loneliness.
Yeah, she is desperately escaping into artificial or plastic relationships.
Right.
Let's actually look at how she builds this defense mechanism in the very first key lyric. I'll read the exact English translation that captures the cultural nuance. Here we go.
Go for it.
Please don't disrupt my program of love.
What really stands out to you as a listener here is that specific word, right? Program.
Yeah, it's such an inorganic, cold word to use when talking about human emotion.
It really is. It symbolizes how she is desperately trying to control her feelings with pure logic. It's as if her heart has been so badly broken that she has had to systemize herself just to function.
Like a machine.
Exactly. She has built this rigid set of rules so that no one can ever get close again.
So real love is basically unpredictable, and to her, that unpredictability is like a computer bug that will completely crash her system.
Yes, that's exactly it.
It makes me think of putting your phone, or in this case your heart, into airplane mode.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You know, you do it because you're overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
You turn off all the receivers so no painful signals can reach you.
Right.
But the tragedy of airplane mode is that while it successfully stops the bad news from coming in, it also completely severs you from the good news, from warmth, from any real connection. It's a very painful, isolating way to protect yourself.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Blocking the pain also blocks the cure. And this intense isolation leads directly to the extreme lifestyle choices she makes to cope, which we see in the next lyric.
All right, cultural nuance. Continuing a life where day and night are completely reversed.
So she's flicked her whole schedule.
Yeah, but now wait a minute. Looking at the sources, particularly the historical context of Japan in the mid-1980s, this was the dawn of the massive bubble economy.
Oh, absolutely. The economy was booming.
Money was flowing, discos were packed, Tokyo was glowing, so couldn't an argument be made that she is just a young, wealthy woman enjoying her 20s in a booming economy?
Sure, you could definitely say that.
Like, why do we immediately assume this nocturnal life is a trauma response rather than just, fun?
That is a very fair question to ask. And honestly, on the surface, that is exactly what she wants the world to think.
Ah, okay.
But if we connect this lyric to the broader theme of the song, escaping the daylight is incredibly symbolic. In Japanese literature and culture, daylight represents sincere daily life.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, it's bright, it's honest, it's revealing. Under the harsh sun, the empty hole in her heart is simply too visible. She cannot hide from her own reality in the daylight.
I see. So the sun is almost like an interrogator. It forces you to look at your life clearly.
Exactly. So she chooses to become a resident of the night. She hides amidst the neon lights, the loud music, and the alcohol.
Wow.
The night offers a kind of camouflage for her pain.
Yeah.
The glamour of the 80s bubble era is just the physical setting she uses to run away from herself.
And I guess when you're running from yourself, you have to put on a performance for everyone else, which leads us to how she actually navigates these neon-lit nights.
Right.
Let's read the next lyric. Cultural nuance. It's just a magic trick that I learned. I'm sorry.
The word magic here, it refers to her seduction techniques.
Like her charm and stuff.
Exactly. Her smiles, her allure, the flawless way she navigates these superficial plastic nighttime encounters. But the absolute key word in this phrase is learned or acquired.
Ah, so she wasn't born a heartbreaker.
Precisely. She is not a natural femme fatale who enjoys playing with people's emotions. The implication is that, once upon a time, she loved earnestly and deeply.
So the magic is fake.
Yes, this magic she uses now is entirely manufactured. It is just armor she learned to wear so she can survive these empty nights without completely falling apart.
Think about a time you've had to put on a brave face at a social event when you were hurting inside. That is the exact magic she is talking about here.
Oh, totally.
And the English phrase right at the end of the line, I'm sorry, it just hits so incredibly hard.
It really does.
At first glance, you might think she is apologizing to the men she's stringing along, but it feels much more like a tragic inward self-deprecation. She is looking at herself in the mirror and saying, I'm sorry, but I am completely broken. I can no longer love truly.
That's spot on. It is an apology to her own soul for what she has had to become to survive. And because she has become this guarded, artificial version of herself, she issues a very clear, desperate warning to anyone who tries to get close.
Let's hear that warning. Cultural nuance. Please, never love me seriously.
We really have to highlight the strong negation here. Never.
It's intense.
It reveals a core, foundational despair. Usually in a pop song, the singer is yearning for someone, anyone, to love them seriously.
Yeah, that's like every pop song ever.
But here she is aggressively, almost violently rejecting it. And why? Because to her, real love is now a deadly poison.
But isn't that almost like manipulative? She is out at the clubs using her magic to attract people, but the second they show genuine affection, she pushes them away.
I mean, it definitely looks manipulative from the outside, absolutely. But internally, it's pure fear.
Fear of what, exactly?
If someone loves her seriously, she might let her guard down. That would completely shatter her plastic peace and awaken all the past agony she has locked away. She simply does not believe she has the strength to survive going through a broken heart a second time.
It's an incredible psychological paradox. By aggressively rejecting love, by screaming, never love me, she is actually revealing to the listener that she craves real love more than anything else in the world.
Yes.
She knows exactly how powerful and heavy genuine connection is, and she is absolutely terrified of being crushed by its weight again.
That is the ultimate tragedy of her character. She pushes away the exact medicine she needs to heal.
Yeah.
And because she has completely rejected authentic human connection, look at what she is forced to rely on instead.
Let's read the next phrase. Cultural nuance. Both my flashy dresses and my shoes are friends to a lonely me.
This might actually be the most quietly painful line in the entire song.
Really? Why do you say that?
Think about what flashy dresses and expensive shoes are usually meant for. They're meant to make you shine, to attract others, to celebrate a moment of joy with people, you know.
Yeah, for social connection.
But for her, these inanimate objects are her only friends.
Wow, so she has completely lost faith in humanity, so she relies on inorganic things because things cannot betray her.
Exactly. A dress can't break your heart.
Right.
And what is brilliant here is the musical arrangement. Tatsuro Yamashita's incredibly cool, upbeat funk guitar is driving the rhythm directly underneath this lyric. You are physically tapping your foot and grooving while she is confessing her absolute desolate isolation.
It's like wearing top-tier noise-canceling headphones to an incredibly crowded, vibrant party.
Oh, I like that.
You know, to everyone else in the room, you look like a DJ. You look totally in the zone, cool, and untouchable. But internally, you are completely cut off from the voices, the laughter, and the warmth of the people standing right next to you. The dresses and shoes are just visual noise-canceling headphones.
That is a perfect analogy. She's in the middle of the crowd, but she is entirely alone.
Yeah.
And the irony is, even equipped with this armor, even living this fake plastic life, she cannot escape her past. It bleeds into her present choices.
Let's see how that happens in the next lyric. Cultural nuance? How ironic that the people who invite me out always resemble him.
This lyric shows such a profound understanding of how trauma loops work in the human brain.
Like repeating the same mistakes.
Exactly. She acknowledges the unbearable irony of her situation. She is out every single night, actively playing at plastic love, keeping everyone at arm's length to protect herself.
Right.
Yet subconsciously, she only seeks out and accepts invitations from suitors who physically or energetically resemble the very man who broke her heart in the first place.
Oh man, so she is literally haunted by him. She built this entire plastic world to escape his memory, and yet she populated that world entirely with cheap copies of him.
She cannot escape him as her standard for love.
Yeah.
No matter how much fake romance she engages in, she is just looking for ghosts of him in the faces of strangers.
It is such a sad, self-aware cycle. You can almost see her sitting in a VIP booth in Tokyo somewhere, laughing a bitter laugh at her own unreasonable reality. Her grand escape route is actually just a psychological trap she built for herself. She's basically running in a circle.
She is. But eventually, the sun has to rise. The music has to stop. And the performance has to end.
Which brings us to our final key lyric, cultural nuance. Around the time I fall asleep on the highway late at night.
This sets such a vivid, cinematic final scene. The highway here is the ultimate symbol of urban loneliness.
Just speeding through the dark.
Yeah. The frenzied, neon-lit night of the city has finally ended. She is sitting alone in the back of a taxi cab, the rhythmic hum of the engine vibrating through the seat. And as she finally falls asleep, completely defenseless, her plastic armor finally comes off.
Because she can't keep the program running in her sleep, the conscious defense mechanism just shuts down.
Exactly. For those few hours in the back of the cab, speeding down the empty highway, she returns to her true, vulnerable self. The act is over until tomorrow night.
It is such a beautiful transition from the loud, fake, heavily decorated nightlife back to a cold, quiet, undeniable reality. The sun is going to come up soon, and the whole agonizing cycle will just start all over again.
When you look at the complete lyrical picture we've painted today, Plastic Love isn't just a dance track. It is the ultimate modern story of urban loneliness. It's the story of a heartbroken woman wandering a massive, indifferent city, wearing an artificial mask just to survive the day-to-day.
And exploring the lyrics this deeply makes you realize exactly why it is considered a global masterpiece. It is the friction.
The friction is everything.
Right.
The secret to its massive revival wasn't just the algorithm, and it wasn't just the catchy beat. It is the stark, beautiful contrast between the lyrics, a woman who is deeply wounded but acting incredibly tough, and the unfading, warm, human groove of Yamashita's arrangement. The deep passion and literal sweat of these musicians from 40 years ago manages to cross language barriers, time barriers, and cultural barriers to actually comfort the loneliness of listeners today.
Which leaves you with a really fascinating question to ponder as we wrap up today.
What's that?
Consider our world right now. We are more digitally connected than any generation in human history, yet study after study shows we are facing a global epidemic of loneliness.
Oh, for sure.
So what does it say about our modern era that a 40-year-old song about artificial plastic relationships and hiding behind a carefully constructed persona actually resonates more deeply with today's globally connected digital generation than it did when it was first released?
Wow.
Are we all just walking around with our hearts on airplane mode?
That's a powerful thought to leave on.
Thank you so much for listening. We feature various Japanese songs and provide detailed explanations on our website. Please check the link in the description to explore more. If you enjoyed this program, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your thoughts or song requests in the comments. See you next time. This was Japan Lyric Room.